Welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's my great pleasure to introduce Alison Rand. She's a promising new author, and she's going to read a few excerpts from her first book, and it's a doozy. It's called A Place Called Grace, and it's a searingly honest memoir. Any reader can relate if she or he has ever hit a bump in the road, and who has not, and yearns to start over, preferably in a very different, unfamiliar place. In Alison's case, it was a sharp transition from pulling up roots in New York City and moving lock, stock, and barrel to Rome, Italy, to heal from a divorce, from a failed romance, to restart her acting career, and why not, to perhaps find love abroad with a handsome, romantic Italian. In life, as we know, the dream and the reality are often far apart. Prepare to take part in her journey. Smile with her, cry with her, and above all, learn from her hard-won life lessons. Without further ado, I give you Alison Rand.
Thank you to everyone for being here today, and especially to the Bookmark Shoppe for this great honor of hosting me for my book reading engagement at this wonderful bookstore in New York City, where I was born and have lived for most of my life. I was also fortunate to have been invited to talk about my book in Rome, Italy this past summer, where part 2 of my memoir takes place and where I lived for almost 3 years, many, many years ago. I have gone through my own deep journey while writing this memoir, and eventually my writing became a catharsis for such an important as well as difficult part of my life. All my life I have felt my emotions intensely. It is probably from this that I eventually became an actress and later a social worker. I have spent my eclectic professional life, including as an advertising copywriter, exploring such emotions and naming them. And from this I have learned how to crystallize and frame those swirling universal fears of rejection and abandonment, love and loss, yearning for connection that so many people, particularly women, feel and yet cannot identify and express for themselves. I have tried to write in a manner that brings you, the reader, into my world as I confront so many human emotions and experiences, from feeling unmoored and unsettled to desperately needing an adventure, not knowing where it would take me. As I began to think about how to write this memoir, I had initially contemplated that I would only write about my 3 years living alone in a foreign country, trying to make a new life. To enhance my memory, I reread and relied on my diaries of 3 years. Then my editor said, "What? Writing about moving to Italy is only part 2 of your story. You need a part 1 and a part 3. She added, "You need to show why you would move to a foreign country alone, not knowing a soul, nor speaking the language well, and depict what it was that made you come back to the States." Of course she was right. Without her intuitive intellect, teaching skills, and tough love, this book could not have been written. While it may not be yet a #1 bestseller, so many people, women and men, have told me that they could relate to so much of what I tried to share in my story, and how it even helped them throughout their own difficult journeys. So when I made the commitment and the decision to write A Place Called Grace, I had 2 main reasons that compelled me to not only tell my story, but tell it warts and all, not prettied up. I knew I would have to tell the truth if I was going to inspire other women and men to learn from my experiences. I would need to include my illusions, delusions, and other mistakes in ways I thought or behaved that caused problems for me and how I overcame these challenges. Perhaps the reader might have a laugh at my expense, but if she or he then recognizes opportunities to be more resilient on their own journeys, my job for that reader will have been done. My second compelling reason for writing this book was to honor an intergenerational relationship. One I am not going to describe here. It's pivotal to my story, and you'll need to read the book to discover it. I have been blessed in many ways. I've also experienced great pain, both physical and emotional. I have survived a dysfunctional childhood. I have jumped optimistically in a number of romantic relationships that all ended pretty badly, and I had to really look at who I was being for that to be such a common default situation. I have had serious illnesses that laid me low, and a horrific accident that continues to cause me pain to this day. Depression and loneliness have also been my constant companions for large parts of my life. Yet, wake up excited for each new day and recognize that I am a work in progress. I also get great pleasure and joy from my canine companions, past and present. Dogs to me are earthly angels, as anyone who lives with such a creature will surely agree. I believe there are a great many people who can relate to my life story, see themselves in me, and hopefully find solace and inspiration in how I dealt with and overcame many of life's most relatable challenges. So welcome to my world, to a place called Grace. I hope to touch your heart. And please, after you read the book, let me hear from you. Yay! I'm going to begin reading a short prologue and then continue reading a portion from chapter 1. A third of my life ago, I flew away. I moved alone to a foreign country where I didn't have a job lined up, didn't speak the language well, and knew not a single person. Some people said it was a brave thing to do. Others thought it was unwise, bordering on insane. Why would I leave a perfectly good life as an actress in New York? Why would I give up a hard-to-get Manhattan apartment with a partial view of the Hudson? It was neither brave nor crazy. What even my friends did not realize was how desperate I felt, how lost. I arrived in Rome without any particular direction. All I had was a goal and a fierce determination to try and change my life, to begin again where no one knew me. In the eternal city, I hope to find something lasting, a sense of permanence, a sense of belonging, a home. 1994. It was always the same dream. I was swimming along in calm waters near the shoreline, doing the crawl, kicking evenly, my arms pulling me along. Gradually, I found I was swimming against the tide. I wasn't going anywhere. I had to kick harder, increase the power of my stroke. Soon even that wouldn't be enough, and I'd be swept out to sea. I woke up in a cold sweat. Again. The clock said 4:13 a.m. I stayed under the covers, steadying my breathing until sunrise. Then I stumbled to the kitchen and made myself a cup of coffee that I would sip, as I did every morning, in one of the comfortable bedroom chairs. From there, I could gaze out the window if I focused on a tiny space between two tall buildings that otherwise blocked my view. I could make out the smallest snippet of the Hudson River. And that calmed me. I told myself again how fortunate I was. After all, I had what others believed was a satisfying life. At 37, I had abs that were just this side of washboard. I had the comfort of some good friends. Although struggling as an actress, I had my own place in Manhattan, which is no small thing. Nevertheless, like my semi-view window, something in my life was blocked. Every day was the same, right down to what I ate and how I ate it. I measured it out, 1 glass of white wine and 2 cigarettes at 6 p.m. 1 spoonful of low-fat Ben & Jerry's at night before bed. I had become a careful eater ever since my short-lived career as a flight attendant, where I lived in fear of the monthly weigh-ins. 1 cup of whole grain cereal with low-fat milk for breakfast, along with 1.5 cups of super strong coffee. Chicken salad on whole wheat with lettuce, tomato, and pickle for lunch. I went to the gym 5 times a week in a short spandex top to show off my abs and form-fitted sweatpants to disguise my thighs, and always did the same routine. Stationary bike for half an hour, strength training with 5-pound weights and a series of stretches. For a short time after those workouts, I was at peace until the endorphins subsided, and I was once again adrift in a life that looked great from the outside, but felt lonely on the inside. That morning, as I nursed my 1.5 coffees, Denise called as she always did at 9:30 a.m., like clockwork. "Hey, honey," she said, "how was the date?" Denise, a Pat Benatar lookalike with a small perfect nose and large almond-shaped brown eyes, worked in finance and was always buzzing with energy. "The same, kind of boring," I said with a sigh. "Hold on, I've got another call." A minute later, she was back. "Sorry, business," she apologized. "Honey, you sound so sad. What can I do?" "I don't know," I said. "It's like I'm programmed to go through specific motions every day, but without any purpose. I feel like a Stepford wife, and I'm not even married." "How can you say that? You've got a body to die for, and you lead a glamorous life, surrounded by interesting people. I wish I had your life. I mean, look at you. You're an actress." "I audition," I corrected her. "That's different from having steady acting work." I'd been the girl on the box and in the infomercial for Perfect Smile, a tooth whitening paste. The producers praised me for my work on the TV ad for the patch, a weight control product that was being marketed across Europe. Whenever I was chosen for a commercial out of a field of 100 contenders, I felt special, singled out. It gave me a rush and made me feel I had been right to choose a career in acting. I wasn't aiming to be Meryl Streep, just hoping for a chance for a fulfilling career. I didn't know what I was in for when I chose it. No matter how hard I tried, I was never able to break into the Screen Actors Guild. Without being a union member, my pay scale was lower and I wasn't eligible for health insurance benefits. Also, SAG actors looked down on their non-union counterparts. I never felt as if I belonged. I kept trying, but it was a catch-22. Only SAG actors were sent on SAG auditions, even though various agents I'd had promised to slip me in when they could. To outsiders, these union distinctions were meaningless. Even Denise, my closest friend, thought of me as an actress, which to many people automatically means glamour, fun, and living the high life. She pointed out that even if the previous night's date wasn't so thrilling, I was never at a loss for men who took me to dinner. These men have different names, but really it's like I'm dating the same person over and over, I said. I'm not feeling a connection. I'm not feeling connected anywhere. Except for you, I don't feel close to anyone, not even my other friends. I was born in this city, but it all feels so transient. Now I'm going to take you with me on an audition in Rome that I was very excited about. And then I got an agent who put me up for something I think you'll find amusing. I got another name of an agent through someone else I had met in Rome, another friend of a friend of, etc. I met with this agent, Christo, who asked me to bring headshots in my resume. I had brought to Italy half a suitcase full of both those, knowing I would need them. Christo looked directly at me with an approving gaze. "You are a good type," he said. "You look European or Italian with your dark hair and eyes, and you can also look American, and you're pretty, so I think I can use you." I was thrilled. "Do you have anything I can audition for right now?" I asked, hoping against hope. I will send you to Shayla Rubin, an American casting director. She is casting some small parts right now for a film at Cinecittà. I knew of that studio. Everyone did. It was quite famous. The place where all the spaghetti westerns had been shot and home over the years to directors from Coppola and Scorsese to Fellini, Bertolucci, and Visconti. Dozens of the films shot there had gone on to win Oscars. I was so excited I could barely breathe. What are they shooting? I asked, trying to contain myself. It is a film called Daylight, he said. The star is Sylvester Stallone. Was he kidding? Was this a dream? Stallone was A-list. Stallone was Rocky and Rambo. It did strike me as funny that I had to move all the way to Italy to make it into a major American movie. And I had a moment of panic that the agent would assume I knew how to do my own stunts, or that I had Rambo-like abilities that would qualify me for being in an action movie. Did I need to have zero body fat, the way Stallone did? I was in fairly good shape, but I might have to reconsider those 6 nightly biscotti. I had to fold my street map all the way out to find Shayla Rubin's apartment in the heart of Rome. Even so, I had to stop multiple times and ask for directions. It's true that I am terrible with directions, but I have to say in my own defense that Rome is not an easy city to maneuver. Shayla was a tiny woman originally from New Jersey who had studied the violin and viola before getting involved in movies and moving to Rome. She smoked nonstop and had a smoker's cough. She took my headshots and said she would call me. I skipped out of there like a schoolgirl. I was going to have a part in an American action movie. How cool was that? It did seem that my luck was changing, even though the economy was bad, and even Italian actors were having trouble finding work. Riccardo, the agent who worked out at my gym, thought I was a good type for pubblicità, TV commercials, and set me up for an ad for mozzarella cheese. I immediately made an appointment with a hairdresser so I would look as good and Italian as possible. You can dress casually, Riccardo told me. Wear a skirt and a nice shirt. I went through my closet and chose a black form-fitted skirt and pink blouse. On camera, those colors look good on me. My experience in New York was that for commercials, they usually wanted a particular look, a 30-something neurotic type, like the Elaine Bennis character from Seinfeld, for example, or a sexy car saleswoman with a low-cut blouse. Often there was copy to read or try to memorize quickly, but I wouldn't know until I got there. At 10 the next morning, I was en route to the casting director's office, my head held high. Here I was in Rome on my way to my first audition. At the casting director's office, I sat in the last available seat. All the other actresses had short skirts. Mine was knee-length, and tight blouses. They had long, heavy hair that partly covered their face, while I always wore my long hair loosely tied back. Did they know something I didn't? Or was I the standout, the one who got attention for being different? There was no script. I wondered what I would be doing for this audition, aside from eating cheese. After 45 minutes of fidgeting and adjusting my hair and applying more lipstick, the casting director, unshaven and with a big toothy grin, called my name. Buongiorno, I said inside the audition room. There was a single camera and a table with a big plate of cheese. It was a good thing I was not lactose intolerant. Eat the cheese and look directly into the camera, he instructed me in Italian. Look sensuous while you were saying buonissimo, buonissimo. Very good. Look sensuous? I was way too nervous. During the first take, I spit cheese from my mouth while trying to say buonissimo. He told me to do it again. He used his hands theatrically to suggest the heights of ecstasy I should be feeling as I sampled the cheese. I tried again. As I put the second piece of cheese in my mouth, I puckered my lips and tried to look carnal. Buonissimo. It was just one word, but the cheese got stuck against my teeth. I did it again. This time, as I swallowed the cheese, I bit my tongue and felt a dab of blood inside my mouth. I did not feel sensuous, and I was pretty sure I didn't look it either. I did 5 more takes before it was over. I wouldn't know for a while whether I had landed the gig, and I had probably consumed a full day's allotment of calories from fat and dairy, but I felt proud of myself. I had the interest of agents, and I had gone on an audition, and I felt fantastical. I didn't get the mozzarella commercial. But soon after that, Ricardo sent me on another audition. This one was for a small part in an Italian telefilm. The audition was held in an unfamiliar part of the city, although one could argue that, to me, most of the city was unfamiliar. I walked around half an hour trying to locate the building, and finally had to ask a passing priest, a really cute one, all the men in Italy are cute, for help. None of the buildings had any numbers on them. The priest looked at the piece of paper on which I had written the address, looked up, and pointed right away to the correct building. How did he know? Some things about Italy just cannot be taught, I supposed. Once I was where I was supposed to be, the casting director looked me over and handed me a script to read in Italian. He gave me a few minutes to focus on the words, but I couldn't shake off the terror of trying to speak Italian like a native. Mario, non vedo l'ora di vederti, amore, I read from the script. Quando vieni a casa? Mario, I can't wait to see you, love. When will you come back home? Everything in Italian film is dubbed, including the Italian actors. I had heard even that Sophia Loren was also dubbed. Dubbing actors are in high demand in that country. Even so, my Italian embarrassed me, despite my best efforts to sound fluent. I can use your type, said the casting director. You are a good type for me, un tipo speciale. I had no idea what this good, different, special type was, but I was happy to hear it. I didn't get the part.
Oh my gosh.
And now I'm just going to read a snippet of a brief visit home, and then I'll take your questions. Spending a few weeks back home was good for me. I saw my friend Denise in New York, let my mother and George pamper me in Florida, and saw American doctors in both cities who brought me back to health. My mom and I spent quality time, staying up late, talking and knitting. I'm so proud of you, honey, she told me. I could never do what you've done. I had always lived to please her, and it was a rush to feel that I had succeeded. When I returned to Rome in January 1996, my young Italian hairdresser was waiting at the airport to greet me. To find out more about that, you're going to have to read the book. He had called me at my mother's place on Christmas Day, a lovely surprise. We kissed at the arrival's gate like new lovers, eager to hold each other again. Somehow he managed to get my huge black suitcases into his tiny, efficient Renault. While driving back to my apartment, he turned silent. Dimmi tutto, I said. Tell me everything. I am afraid, he said. I don't want to fall in love with you. Oh, what's changed? I asked, but he wouldn't answer. I was frustrated and nearing the end of my patience. What was it with these Italian men? What didn't I understand about them or about me? We arrived at my apartment to find that there was no hot water. Too jet-lagged to care, I lay on the bed with Federico, and within a moment, there was a giant cracking sound. The mattress fell through the broken frame to the floor. Under other circumstances, I might have laughed, but not now. I am afraid you will not stay in Italy, Federico said. I don't want to get hurt. What do you mean? I really like it here, I said from a mattress on the floor of an apartment with no hot water. Thank you. So, does anyone have any questions about Italy or anything to do with this book?
I just want to make a comment. You must do an audiobook.
Oh, yeah.
Don't you think
That's
so?
a great idea.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I mean, the way she
You're a wonderful reader.
reads
Yeah.
is phenomenal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The inflections in your voice, and you're very animated. It's perfect.
Well, you know me, I'm animated, yes, but yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Absolutely.
Being an audiobook lover.
You are. I heard that, yeah. Right.
Why did you choose Italy as the place to go? Seek new adventures.
That's a great question. But you still have to read the book, because part of it has to do with, after a serious relationship ended, I tried to change myself to become more independent. And I took a trip to go hiking in the Italian mountains of the Dolomites. And while on that trip, trying to be Miss Independent, I fell for an Italian right away, who actually lived in Rome. And during that trip, I was feeling unmoored, as I write in the book, and unsettled in New York. I decided by the next year I was going to go back and try to make a go of living in Italy, and I chose Rome for the most part because this man that I really fell for lived there. But not entirely, but I'd say 75%. But Italy has always been in my blood. I've loved it for my whole life. And I feel a passion with the people there compared to Americans. They're different. They're just so full of life. And I just feel happy there, even though I did try to live there, and it was very difficult and a real struggle. But have you ever been to Italy?
I have, yes, twice.
So
I
I'm
love
not...
it. I could see wanting to live there. I did at one point hope to live there. It just was too difficult, but
it's really...
I love the language, and I just love the lifestyle, and you know, it's just a very magical place.
How about the food?
Oh, of course.
And the art and the architecture and the men.
Yes.
And I mean, it's very hard, but it's so hard for them now. It's even worse now than it was when I lived there 20 years ago. There's just no work. And the government is, you know, in turmoil. And so it's very challenging to find work. It was challenging then, but it's even worse now for professional actors and dubbing actors and people that I know. Yeah.
Well, after listening to you read, I think they were fools not to hire you, because you really have a gift.
She is a good actress.
You mean when I was there?
Because your reading now is just amazing.
Well, thank you. Well, thank you so much. It was so hard. I was so scared. You know, I was on this adventure by myself, and I met so many agents, and I felt really lucky and grateful, but I wasn't Italian enough. And when you don't speak the language, while they do dub you, the way of life was so difficult there, and there was so much bureaucracy. And when you read the book, you'll see that I was very blessed to have met different people along the way that helped me with all the bureaucracies, one after the other. But it took many years to get a work permit, which I can't believe I did get. It was that hard. And a residency and permissos di soggiornos, and to work and to live, and it was crazy, very, very hard. Most people would give up. I didn't give up because I was so unhappy in New York at the time. I wanted this to work desperately. So, but thank you.
Having lived there for as long as you did, what was it like for you when you returned to the United States?
That's a great question.
Shock. How did you acclimatize?
Well, when I was living there, I tried to make myself as Italian as I could possibly be, dressing more Italian, fishnet stockings, big hair, you know, all of that, trying to look more Italian. But I would dream of French toast and pancakes. And I would dream of a restaurant that's no longer here called Josie's, because it had like Italian cuisine, California cuisine, fresh fish and just very healthy food. And I just couldn't wait to come back home to eat that. But when I'd come back and walk on Broadway, I would think, oh my God, it's so ugly compared to Rome. I mean, New York's a beautiful city in many ways, but Rome is just very special. So it was a culture shock, even being a native New Yorker, to come back. I was betwixt in between two cultures, I think, trying so hard to fit in to the Italian culture, and then coming back here. And struggling also.
Looking back, do you regret going to Italy?
Oh, never. No, I learned so much about another culture, about the way other people live and they think, and I made some wonderful friends eventually there. Learned about myself, how to handle many challenges alone without family, because they were here. And I got a book. I written a memoir. Part 2 is based on my time in Italy. And no, I wouldn't change anything. It's part of me now. Yeah. For the good and for the bad.
Are you thinking of writing a sequel?
I am definitely thinking about it. Yeah, there's still so much of a story to tell. I just haven't figured it all out yet, but that's what I'm thinking about. Often, every day.
Can you give us an inkling? Just a tad.
What that would cover?
Oh, okay.
Well, I mean, there's so many things that have happened since the end of my book. You know, part 2, again, only takes place in Italy. Part 3 does not.
Is that part 1 and part 2? I'm confused. Is this book
There's 3 parts.
in this book?
Right. So part 1 is why would I make a decision to go to Italy, and background, a lot of background, and about family and a divorce, and why would I ever do something like that? Part 2 takes place in Italy when I did move there. Part 3 is when I came back here, and what's happened, and how I found some kind of joy again after going through a series of horrible losses, personal losses, and illness. So, yeah. Oh, hi.
Hello. Are you going to see?
Please sit.
Oh, yeah. Hi.
When did you know that you wanted to be a writer? Has this something been inside of you for a long time, or developed later?
Well, I was a copywriter for a short time, and as I was an actress, you know, and I loved to read. But no, this was not something I ever thought I would do. While I did keep a journal for 3 years while I lived in Italy, I think I must have known deep down that I was going to use it at some point. And some good friends in Italy have been egging me on for years. You have to write about this, you have to write about this. So when I made the decision, okay, I'm going to write about my time in Italy, as I read in the beginning, when I finally met an editor at the time to help me with this, she said, that's part 2. We need a part 1 and a part 3. And that was really challenging to figure out, because it's not a normal Hollywood ending. It's a very different ending, but a real ending, real life.
How long did you spend writing the book?
A little more than 2 years, yeah. A lot of struggles. It was one of the hardest things I've ever done. And to be so open, you know, but at the end I could not be so open. In fact, writing now for me, even short little excerpts, blogs, I am a very open writer. So, you know, from talking about, you know, the passing of my beloved dog to, you know, speed dating, or, you know, what it's like to be single again. And you have to look at my website and then you'll see.
Where can people
Yes.
find
Well,
your blogs and your website?
my website is easy to find. It's called gracebook.com. And I have a number of blogs on that. And you can read all the reviews on that as well. Also on Amazon, but yes. And
Would you ever do another stint abroad, or pick up and go somewhere completely different and live?
I think about it, it would be too hard. It was so hard. It was that hard. You know, the Americans that I met there all either had husbands or had jobs that sponsored them for American Express or American companies or even Italian companies, and they had it really easy because they could get a work permit and all the permissos, the permissions to stay, and the visas. I did it all alone, and it was really challenging. But that's what I needed to do, and I did it. I persevered.
And we applaud you.
Yeah, no. I really, Are there any other questions?
How old were you when you made the decision to go to Italy?
In my mid-30s. My mid-30s, yeah.
I love your sense of humor.
Yeah.
And I think it is very identifiable, your book. But you dared to do what a lot of us only dream of, you know. I've had that yearning to take off and go live in Europe for a few years and then return, and it never came to fruition. And so I love hearing about your experience, but I also love the humor attached to it.
Thank you. Yeah, there was some humor.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Yeah, there was. Huh?
Why are you calling a place called Grace?
Well, if I go into that, it might ruin one of the themes of the book. So I would suggest that you read it, and then it will be very clear while I call it that. But the word grace can mean many different things. So you can think of it that way, but there's a specific reason why I call it that, and I wouldn't want to ruin it for you.
Find out.
Yes, you'll find out. Yeah.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
I love your book, and I loved hearing you today.
Oh, thank you so much. And thank you to everyone for taking the time to be here today to listen to this. I'm very, very grateful. And again, in my website, if you feel like looking at the blogs, is a place called gracebook.com. And I'll let you know if someone who hasn't read it, if you do read it, I'd love to hear from you, to hear what you think.
Is that where you'd respond on the Grace Code on that website?
Yeah, you can there. Yes, exactly. There, you can respond.
I'm so proud of you. I'm so happy for you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you to everyone for being here. Thank you.
Good afternoon.